Confidence. I'm Linda Hammond, and you're watching Sparking Discovery, which is about remaining relevant, which we believe is done by exposing ourselves to thought leaders in our fields. This is where we lean into their experience and gather as much as we can to help us make the right decisions, or make the decision right. This evening, I'll be speaking to Brenda Lasersohn. I've known Brenda for 25 years, and in 2015, Talk to Us launched the Human Capital Activation Summit. Brenda was a key contributor, and we've worked together since on various interventions regarding people in business. It's been the greatest pleasure working with her. Welcome, Brenda.
Brenda, thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto this forum. It's really a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Registered with Health Professions Council, with the Health Professions Council, SA, as a counselling psychologist. She has expanded her knowledge into narrative psychotherapy and interpersonal neurobiology, which she practices in business as well within families. She serves on several NGOs where she enlightens people to deal with complex issues such as gender, race, ethics, power, and abuse. But most importantly, a kind, caring, devoted person serving humanity, and on top of all that, a wonderful person to be around and with. Thanks for being with us, Brenda.
Brenda, thank you for that introduction. I was enjoying it. Maybe I'll just leave it to you because I felt warm. Thank you. And if I
every now and then, Brenda,
our relationship has been a valued one as well. I was very struck, Linda, by what you have called your forum, which is Sparking Discovery. And that really has, and often I speak of a neural correlate. What I mean by that is that it has an explanation in terms of our neurology, in terms of our brain. And there is a wonderful description called snagging in neurobiology, which speaks about stimulating neuronal activity and growth. And it would seem to me that that's what you are is what you're making available for people to be able to stimulate and being inspired to rewire. And perhaps we'll talk about what rewiring means when we come to it a little later in our conversation, but that this isn't a neutral venue. What people will be somewhat different, we will be somewhat different after we've had our conversation to the way we were before our conversation. And I'm hoping that your viewers will feel the same way, that they've picked up something from this that will stimulate them or trigger neuronal activity and growth, and be able to be inspired to rewire. And that will speak to neuroplasticity, which we'll come to in a moment.
Geez, that sounds so interesting. So let's get into it. Brenda and I spoke recently, and we were speaking about the concept of a crucible event. And what is the definition of that? Well, it's a transformative experience through which an individual comes to a new or altered sense of their identity and being. It's an inflection point where we examine our values, question our assumptions, hone our judgment, and invariably emerge from such an event stronger with a deeper purpose. So really, this evening, I wanted to just chat to Brenda and say, does she think the pandemic is this type of event, and how will that impact on our lives moving forward? And do you think that will change the trajectory of communities and maybe even nations? What are your thoughts, Brenda?
Linda, your commentary and just the idea of a crucible moment, which you've defined in its fullness, is a very important thing, because it speaks to those times in all our lives, and as well as in our organizational life, where a moment happens that at times can't be predicted and will alter dramatically the way we look at things, the way we perceive ourselves and others. And to that extent, this does feel like a crucible moment. I don't think there is anyone actually on earth. This is not just a local phenomenon. It's an international, global phenomenon where nothing is the same. And we can call that a disruption. In other words, we've taken the general order of things, or this little virus has, and it has turned everything literally on its head. So the kinds of expectations, the kinds of ways of doing things, even the way we're talking, is a new discovery. It's a new adventure. Although many people in tech circles have been using this kind of platform, it is new for people who generally have not operated this way in the structured world in which we live, we just continue. And for instance, in my practice, people come to my rooms, I meet with them, but I certainly haven't been exploring this platform. Now it seems to me that there is a wide range of possibilities of engagement and meeting with people and connecting with people. So we've now got this disruption. What does disruption mean? Is that it has challenged the usual way of doing things, and to some extent it is throwing us onto a plane of possibilities. This speaks a little bit to the philosopher Heidegger, who speaks to the idea of thrownness. If we are thrown onto this plane or even planet of possibilities. Now we can be on this plane and feel as if we've got no place to go. We don't know what to do. We're not sure what's going to happen when this comes to an end, and it will come to an end, because as the nature of things all are time limited. Life is time limited, and processes are time limited. But that said, if you are on the plane of possibilities, what possibilities for our life can we begin to sift through? What are we able to look at to allow us to manage what is happening to us? So we've disrupted the normalcy. And I think, Linda, you and I spoke the other day of people talking about this as the new normal. There is nothing normal about what's happening. This is an abnormal situation. Human brains are social and interpersonal. We are meant to connect. If I do not see you, and we can even say that now, if I do not see you, you do not exist. If you do not speak with me, I do not exist. So we bring people into existence. We are not just there waiting to be discovered. We are existing in a universe, or a multiverse actually, where we are identifying new possibilities and new engagements, new ways of engagement. So just that idea of a crucible moment, I think, is really significant. And I would really encourage your viewers to consider that as an idea, and to look into their world and to see what has been disrupted, and to consider the idea of being on a new plane of possibilities. And we'll come to that in a moment as to how we would do that. But that all being said, disruption is very uncomfortable. People are feeling anxious, depressed, insecure, not sure where they're going to go next. And that demands some kind of intentional thought. And we're now being demanded to live on purpose rather than by accident. We are now being asked to create purpose so that we can put our attention there. And when I talk about attention, wherever we pay attention, our brains, our minds will go. So if right now I was to say to you, Linda, I'd like you to think about the big toe on your left foot. Not even think about, but send your awareness there. All of a sudden you will become aware of the big toe on your left foot, because you are taking your attention there. So I'd like to start off rather with this idea of intentionality and purpose, and appreciate the anguish and the distress that's come with this disruption.
I think that's very useful. We're all experiencing living through this transition, yet most of us don't have the knowledge, the experience, or the practices to adopt to remain calm and focused, whilst we're reevaluating life. So we, as you say, Brenda, we've just been thrown into it, and now we have to deal, and I think a lot of us, I know I certainly don't. I sometimes feel completely out at sea and out of control. So the question must be, how do we remain positive for ourselves? And then how do we help those in our sphere of influence, if we're a parent, our children, if we're a leader, our staff, and assist them so that they themselves do not feel completely overwhelmed? Because I think it's one thing when you're trying to manage yourself and you've got a very distinct purpose, but how do you assist them while you yourself are feeling overwhelmed and out at sea? And perhaps you can give us some concepts or practices that we can work on? When we spoke, we were talking possibly about things like getting to know oneself through meditation, etc. Now, I don't know about other people, but I don't even have the first idea how to meditate. I kind of like think it's something where you sit down with your legs crossed and go hum, but I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's a lot more than that. So perhaps, Brenda, you can give us some ideas about how we can help ourselves so that we can help others.
Linda, thank you. Not only is that a very important question, but it really brings us to the hub of things. And I'm going to use some acronyms that I'm hoping will be useful for people to use. And the first one I want to use is the acronym of RAIN. What does RAIN stand for? R would be recognition. What do we have to recognize? And what we have to recognize is that we are in a very, very disruptive time of life. All the things that we have hitherto taken for granted a little has been literally turned on its head. Nothing, and I mean nothing. We've got a home, but our home feels different. The atmosphere feels different. We drive out and we see people wandering around in masks. That is different. The way people approach us is different. Now, if we reach out to somebody to try and shake their hand, they may very well pull away. And that experience of rejection is very, very powerfully felt in the body. We feel as if people don't want to come close to us. And these are practices of trying to keep oneself safe and lower the risk of catching a virus or getting sick. So the idea of recognition is really important. And then we move to another, the A of RAIN, which is acceptance. What do we have to accept? We have to accept that things as we have known them are now in a state of flux. That doesn't mean that we won't come to a point where some of the things that we took for granted will come back into our world. We will go back to restaurants, we'll go back to theaters. It may very well be that we've got to, even, when I say accept it, we've got to accept that for many people, they've lost businesses, they've lost their homes, they've lost finance, they've had to have to take children out of schools because they can't afford it. And that's going to be having to accept that we're having to relinquish things. And with that acceptance may come a lot of grief and loss. And what do we do with that? And we'll come to it in a moment. But to be able to touch our grief and our loss, as opposed to saying, let's all, well, it's not as bad as it should be, or it could be. And we hear a lot of people saying, well, we should feel blessed, we've got A, B, and C. But at the end of the day, what this has brought to our recognition is how many people are suffering, how many people don't have food, how many people don't have homes, how impoverished particularly our nation is, and the chaos around the world. When we see what is happening in Europe, when we see what is happening in the United States, these were countries that we looked to as a given stable order. And to a large extent, they are also in chaos. England, Europe, Italy, the United States, there is no place, Melbourne, Australia, they've gone back into a hard lockdown. And consequently, we're seeing that it's still in a state of flux. So the acceptance is to recognize that we are going to have to make shifts in our world. And we'll come to a moment what is meaningful to us will depend on what we discover in our acceptance. And the next aspect is, how do we integrate this? How do we come to a place where we say, well, we can't do this, we can't go on vacation. What else can we do? What else can we do? And integration is a brain function. Our brains do one thing. No, that's not true. They do several things. At any given time in this moment, we've got anywhere between 20 to 100 billion neurons that are firing at this moment, which is really a very sobering idea. But what the brain wants to do is to come to a state of integration. And what does that mean? The brain transmits energy and information. And I'm going to come back to what I'd said in the beginning about wherever we place attention, our mind will go. So if I pay attention, as we were doing, to the big toe on your left foot, if I place my intention onto possibilities, my mind will take me there. So there's a flow of energy and information constantly. So the question is, where am I going to place my attention? What do we have to relook at? Do we have to relook at our family life? Do we have to look at business? Do we have to look at our health? I would suggest we have to look at all of those things. So integration is taking all this recognition and acceptance and putting it into a conversation with ourselves and the people that matter to us to come to a place of a new possible order, not a new normal, but a new order, new purposes in our lives. What should we be most grateful for? What can we let go of? Is it really, really important that I have this brand new, vehicle? Nothing wrong with having a Bentley, nothing at all. But we need to have a look at not the standard of our lives, but the standard of our life, our lived life. And what is it that we are noticing in our lived life that no longer works? In other words, you said, I'm a little reluctant now to be traveling miles to a meeting. I can just click somebody on and we can be in that meeting. So we will reevaluate what we should be doing, what we can do. And what is remarkable about the digital age, it's almost as if it was waiting for this moment. It was waiting for this moment to make an appearance and say, I'm here and you can now use me for your benefit. Up until now, digitization and electronics was something that belonged to people who knew that stuff, to coders and programmers. And now it's becoming mainstream. People are learning new ways of connecting, but remembering that the brain, being social and interpersonal, is not necessarily ideal for our brains. We need to feel felt. We need to have a sense of well-being. And that's also another acronym I'll come to in a moment. And the N part of RAIN is non-identification. What does non-identification mean? We can acknowledge we are afraid, but we are not fear. I can say I feel afraid, but I am not fear. In the same way, and I do, and perhaps I can just give an ordinary example, and perhaps it's a struggle that I've had, perhaps with something like, I am an alcoholic. I am not an alcoholic. I am a person. We are all people. But I have a struggling relationship with alcohol. I am a CEO. I am not a CEO. I am a person who has a job that is labeled as a CEO. But first, I am a person. Even saying I am a child, we get sometimes the greatest wisdom from children, to be able to say I am a person who is as yet a child, so that these are descriptive terms, but it isn't defining us. This time needn't define us. So that non-identification with the problem is really important. The problem is the problem. I am not the problem. We've got to find solutions to the problems, but I am not what I have to find a solution to. So that little acronym is a really important one. And why would we need to this? So I'll come to another acronym, if that's okay, because they're easy then to remember. And that is what is neurobiology or neural, or what would be the neural correlate? And there is a wonderful acronym called FACES. What do we want to achieve? And what we want to achieve is a state of well-being. We want to, again, achieve a state of well-being. So that would be our purpose, and we need to do so with intention. But what is it that we would like to achieve? And what FACES stands for is flexible, adaptive, coherent. In other words, we are genuine, we are relevant, we are in the moment. So that is coherent, energized, which a lot of people don't feel at the moment, and stable, that we don't want to be up and down all the time. This period of disruption has led to many people feeling up and down. They don't know whether things are going to be okay. And to be able to say, I feel insecure, even though I am not insecurity, I feel insecure, gives us a clue as to what we need to do. I have to be able to find something on this plane of possibilities that would allow me to feel secure again. And that's a dilemma right now because we don't know what that might be. But that's why a forum such as what you've done is sparking, is setting off. And what I loved about your this spark of discovery, it ignites the possibility of finding other solutions for our life that might be a little different to what we were doing before this. And that brings us to an idea called, and another acronym, and then I'll stop with the acronyms. And this is called SIFT. What does SIFT mean? SIFT means that we want to feel in some way safe. And right now, people are not feeling safe. So what do we have to do? We have to look in our environment and see where in our environment do I feel safe? What conversations leave me feeling safe? What environments, what discussions, what engagements leave me feeling safe? And I don't mean safe like safe in a corner, but that I can risk being vulnerable. I can risk sharing information with. So safe and trust are very significant things. So we want to feel safe. We want to feel a sense of, the other word is images. What images come to mind when we think of the idea of feeling safe? Who would we be with? Where would be the location? What conversations make us feel safe? And we need to engage in image making. What images comes to mind when we say that? And then there is the F for feelings, and this is odd because people say, what have our feelings got to do with this? We will come to that. And then the last thing is not the last thing, but the T stands for thoughts. What thoughts are coming up for us? So if I could just throw that over to you, Linda, and perhaps you can ask me what comes up for you as I've spoken of these three acronyms. What comes up for you?
That firstly, I really need to take those acronyms and share them with all our viewers so that they've all got a hard copy of it. So if that's all right with you, I'll do that. But I think it reminds me of a sort of an email conversation that we were having when I said to you, the things that I think the vulnerable side, I think there are so many people who's saying they don't want to go on a video or they don't want to switch their camera on because they're feeling vulnerable. I think the vulnerable side is big. I think lots of people are feeling vulnerable because they don't know what's happening with their job, with their pay, with their children's schooling. I have a daughter in matric and I'm besides myself as to whether she's going to get through it okay. So I think the vulnerable is a big thing, and how do people deal with that? And then I think another powerful thing that I felt and experienced is the images. I said to you, we put all our photographs of our last, 50,000 photographs of our last 10 years on our screens and the TVs because it makes us feel safe. It makes you feel, it puts us in a place where our mind can imagine where we are. So I think those are very powerful techniques that you've put forward. And I think that really what we need to do is take those techniques and share them with our viewers in written form so they can go and digest that information, because I do think it's something that you hear it, but, the next thing is the dog's barking or, as I said, the plumber's arrived and you forget about it, and I really think we need to look deeper into that. And then the other part, which I think is important, is when you were mentioning your brain goes to what you're thinking of and focusing on and your intentionality. I think that is very powerful. And I think that sometimes we shouldn't go too far or stay too long in the future, because I think we don't really know what that is right now. So the more we can feel secure and safe in something that we know is maybe a better way to deal with it. But I was just considering when we were talking now, I know there's a lot of people who are wanting 2019 back. And one of the surveys that they did was, that Ask Africa did, was they said, what we're going through, you were talking about grief, people are still stuck in the bargaining stage of grief. Well, maybe if we just wear our masks, it'll all go back and we'll be fine. And I don't believe it is going to go back to exactly the same way as what it would. But if there was a chance of it going back, what would you find disappointing to get back? What would you find would be maybe not such a good thing if we got it back? So what if we shed that made the pandemic useful? What do you believe is something that we've maybe changed fundamentally?
I think what I would hope, not just for other people, for myself as well, is to become aware of the value of relationship. Because I think during this time, what we're seeing is that relationships are being fractured. The world is more divided now than it's ever been. People to the right, people to the left, things are not what our brain chooses to do, to become integrated. There isn't an easy flow in conversation. We don't know what's going to happen next. So there has been a huge disruption politically along all lines, in families, in marriages, in relationships between parent and children. They're struggling with this time of isolation. There are many of our people in our country that are being forced to live in one room with 10 people. And how do you create relationship that is valuable? Because at the end of the day, the big thing that we're discovering right now is relationship, because that's the thing we're most deprived of. People are dying literally of a broken heart. One of the things that have come up in research is that there is broken heart syndrome, losing people that you haven't seen for months because you aren't able to go into a hospital, or people dying at home with nobody there to connect with them, to give them any comfort, so that interestingly, it sounds poetic, but it's from brain science, they don't feel felt. People don't feel felt. So the question in all of this, Linda, and I do think that we land up often offering people ideas, but we don't give the how. How do you do this? How do we sink into awareness? How do we, and what do we have to be aware of? The wheel of awareness, which is something I'm going to send to you as a diagram, comes from interpersonal neurobiology, and it talks about, and I'd like you to be able to think about an idea of a wheel of awareness, where you have in the middle a hub, and then you've got these little spokes coming off the hub, and they connect to the rim of the wheel. That is the wheel of awareness. And what are these different hubs? Or not the different hubs. The middle of the hub is the awareness. On the rim, we find different spokes. And one spoke would be our 5 senses. What are our 5 senses? Smell, touch, sight, hearing, taste. These are 5 senses. Then we have a 6th sense. And what is the 6th sense? You know, when you say, I feel it in my bones, or my tummy I've got butterflies in my tummy, that is real. There are neural networks that surround all our viscera. So when we say it's a visceral experience, what we're actually experiencing is in our tummies, in our chest, in our lungs. When we're afraid, we can't breathe, our chest gets tight. That is the visceral experience of it. Then we come to the 7th sense. And what is the 7th sense? Our thoughts, our cognition. And then they would go even further and say we've got an 8th sense. You know, when we talk about people having extrasensory perception, wherein lies intuition, even if I might say, and this again comes from neuroscience, even a sense of the divine. There is something about prayer right now. People are praying. People are hoping and praying that things will come back to them, that things that are lost will in some way find their way back. And that would be called, when you say earlier about meditation, and I'd like to move away a little from calling it meditation to call it about certain practices that we can engage in that would connect us to the rim of the wheel of awareness. And that is us. If right now we're to put our hand on the left side, we can feel our heartbeat. It is our heart. It is your heart. This is you. This is not outside of you. This is you. How do we connect to that? And that's where these practices can be really, really helpful, because, and that last 8 cents includes the awareness of the other, the divine, but most importantly of relationship. During this period, we've become very aware of who is absent and who is present. Who have we lost? Who have we become aware of the absence of presence, or perhaps the presence of absence. Who has passed? What have we heard? What is now, perhaps I know there are companies closing down. How do we, companies that have been in existence for some centuries, particularly in the UK, have closed down. They're not coming back. And it's like the people that have passed on in our lives. And that absence of presence is a sense of grief and loss. How do we access that? The only way we can access it is by reaching in this moment into our bodies. Where do I feel it? So being vulnerable is not about being weak. We live in a society where we have this binary position. We're either weak or strong. Well, we're not weak or strong, but we are vulnerable human beings. We're vulnerable, and it is through our vulnerability that we connect to each other. So that idea, and the old kind of idea of you go to your shrink, and the first thing your shrink would say to you is, and how did that make you feel? Well, essentially, that's quite a good question to ask. But what we are asking, and I'm not sure if we can necessarily do a practice now, but we can perhaps end our session in a practice, is that we do take, remember, all the way to the beginning, wherever we place our attention, the mind will go. So we can place our attention wherever we want it to be. So the past is gone, the future is unknown, but imagine this moment is known to us. In this moment, we can drop into the wheel of awareness, and we can recognize, and I'm moving away from feeling, but what is our experience? What are our thoughts? What are the images that come to mind that we can capture in this moment? What could that do for us? And so moving away from, before I continue, is that a coherent idea for you, Linda, as I talk about it? Or what does come up to you when I say that? What came up for you?
I think you're absolutely correct in saying that. Yeah, I think that awareness of now is the important thing, because, like I said, you can't go too far into the future, and so I do think that you're quite right in saying that, and I think that awareness and that ability to manage, because I think once you've maybe been aware, you feel a lot more confident and more in control. I think humans, and I'm just using myself as an example. I think we do want to control, and it's an illusion, because I don't think we can, but we do feel more comfortable when we think that we're in control. And I think the practices that you're talking about do make us feel that we're in control, which then obviously gives us that little bit of energy to move into another dimension or to do something different.
And here is the thing. We can be in control of something. We cannot control what will happen, but we can control our breath. Our breath is the one thing that is the first thing we do as we are born into this world. We are given breath. And it is the last thing that we do when we leave this world, is that we have our breath. So we can gasp our last breath, but what tells us that we're alive is our breath. And if I have your permission, can we do a short little exercise that would just give you a taste of what this might feel like or be like, so that it's not lengthy? And I would invite your viewers just to give themselves this moment to be able to just sit with themselves and connect, not only just with, vulnerability is such a wide word, but to drop into awareness. So in this moment, for all of us, if we can just sit in our chairs, feeling the length of our spine holding us up, and to gently close our eyes. So just in this moment to close our eyes. And as you do that, just become very aware of your breath. Just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And then to take a very deep breath and hold it and exhale through your nostrils, not your mouth, so that you're not doing two things at the same time. This isn't about doing it right or wrong, but just to try and follow just this exercise. Breathe in again and hold it and let it go. And it's with the exhaling that we let go of stress, we let go of all the stress points in our body, and just very quickly to do a body scan, to be aware of your shoulders, the tension you might be holding in your shoulders, and just let it go. And now take your awareness to your chest, and if there is any experience of any stress with your next breath, just let it go. And now into your tummy to feel your pelvic area. If you've got any stress there, just to let it go. And now to take your awareness down your thighs, through your calves, into your toes, and just let it go. Just be aware of any stress and let it go. And now to become aware of your arms, your right arm, down your biceps, right the way, all the way down to your fingers, being aware of your fingers as they very gently are sitting on your, or clasped in front of you. And then your left arm through your biceps, through your elbow, down to your wrists and through your fingers. And come back to your breath, just being aware of breathing in and breathing out. Not labored, just gentle breathing. And now, if you will, I'd like you to lift your right hand and just put it across your chest and touch that part of your body where your heart would be. And as you do this, with your hand, try and feel your heartbeat. This is your heart. This is you. This is your aliveness. This is your presence in this moment. This is you. You might feel the fabric covering your skin, or you might feel the warmth of your skin. This is you. This is your body encased skin. This is the skin that encases your body. This is you. Just to sit with that for a moment, you might even find you can hear your heartbeat. This is you. And then to take your left hand and cross it over your right hand and touch the other side, the right side of your body, as if you were holding yourself in a gentle, I care for myself gesture. And be aware that this is you. This is your body. This is your chest. This is you taking care of you. And in this moment, just be aware of your breath, breathing in and breathing out. Now gently take your left hand and place it again onto your thigh, onto your left thigh. Firm, solid, foot on the ground. You're not floating, you're not wafting, you're sturdy, sitting in your chair with your left foot on the ground, and now your left arm, your left hand on your thigh. Then take down your right hand from its heart and put it onto your right thigh, feeling the firmness of it as your foot is on the ground, firm, solid, aware. And then return to your breath for a moment, just breathing in and breathing out. And then gently open your eyes again, being aware of your surroundings, and just sit with that for a moment. Locating yourself again in your room, wherever you are, in this place, connecting to other people, even virtually. And in this moment, we had a common connection with our breath, which tells us we are alive. Because if we cannot connect to our breath, then we're no longer here. Just to sit with that for a moment before we yet again come back to this present moment in which we are meeting in this interesting new way. What was that practice or exercise like for you, Linda? What did you feel?
It's quite different, actually. It's something that I haven't done before, but I think it was very interesting, and I think our viewers would find it as interesting. I do think it's something that we don't do. We're so busy thinking of what is next, what do we need to do next, that we don't think about the immediate present, and we don't take the time to think about ourselves. So I think it was very enlightening. And I think a lot of people would have found it that as well. And of course, Brenda, your voice is so calming. I think I could have just caught a doze. It was just so wonderful. For a minute, I just had this calmness that washed over me.
And Linda, we've got lots of exercises like that, so we can move away from meditation to breathing practices that just anytime, anywhere, sitting wherever, and may I be crude, even sitting on the loo, that you can close your eyes, and for 3 minutes you can just do a breathing exercise that reconnects you with your body, what you're feeling, what images come to mind, what thoughts you have. We could do that, but it would be a longer exercise. But just to encourage one another to spend a moment recognizing that this is you, and you are alive in this moment, and you're on a plane of possibilities, and on this plane we have choices that we can make that are purposeful rather than accidental, and that would allow us in some way to manage this disruption that we're in. So we stay in the present moment, waiting for the future to unfold. It doesn't mean we can't or shouldn't be making decisions, but that we always have to come back to you. So thank you for letting us do that.
I think that would be marvelous to do a couple of them. So what I'll do is let you and I have a discussion after this, and maybe we can put up some times for our viewers to participate in these things. There's so many things online now where people do Pilates and stretching and whatever, but I don't know how many people do stuff where they focus on their whole sort of, as you called it, your 8th sense, just you as you are. So I think that would be useful. So I found this session enlightening, as I always do, speaking to you, Brenda. It's so wonderful speaking to you. And just for our viewers, Brenda has agreed to be a regular contributor on subjects that may interest you. So if there are areas that you would like to know more about, please contact us. You can either post in the comments below on the various social media channels, or you can send us email, or you can look at our contact form on the website, and you can post us some information, or I think a lot of people have our numbers and stuff. Give us a call or email us. But I really have found this very useful session, and I'd want to thank Brenda for your participation and your extremely wise words. Brenda, have you got something final that you'd like to share with us?
Linda, just really that, I know that we're all here, that we're all in this together. We're not all in this together. There is a storm, and we're all in our own boats. So no, we're not in this together. People are in different boats in this storm, and everybody's unique experience is different. And I would welcome comments or ideas or thoughts, or I'd really like to, I would appreciate just the feedback, because that feedback loop is really helpful. And perhaps we could talk about it next time, about what does relationship mean, and it means we're in a feedback loop. Otherwise, it's the clapping of one hand. So I would really welcome anybody's curiosity, interest, what they felt, what they thought, what they would like more elaboration on, because this work, these ideas are expansive, and we're getting so much information around the science of humanness. The science is now catching up to what the yogis knew millennia ago, that now the science is catching up. And I would be, well, can I just say I thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak of these things, because it's not, this is not a therapy session where we're bringing a problem to be sorted. We really are at a meta position. We're talking about things and then bringing it back to the present moment. So I thank you so very much for your invitation, and I would be delighted to join you again.
Thank you. It's always wonderful speaking to you. I think you're right. It is a meta position, where we can sort of like look down on what is happening to us as though, and then decide where to go from there, as opposed to just, being in this whirlwind of drama. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time once again. And we will have Brenda back for sure, people. Thank you, Brenda. Okay, so folks, if you found this useful, please hit the like button, subscribe, follow, share, and more importantly, talk to us. You can complete our book a consultation form on the contact page, or if you want further information, it's on our website. Please have a look. For your information, next week, we'll have Frank Hun, the CEO of Net Presenter, on our show. And we'll be discussing the importance of internal communication that is accessible on multiple devices and platforms. He's all the way from the Netherlands, so it's amazing the connection we get. Net Presenter is an all-in-one communication platform that keeps your employees informed, engaged, productive, and more importantly, safe. And it's easily connecting. It connects easily to other platforms using the REST API. The latest integration to be released is Microsoft Teams. It's a smart solution for information overload on Microsoft Teams. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. Thank you for your time this evening. Once again, thank you to Brenda. Thanks very much and good night.